So your old Honda sounds more like a John Deere than a Honda. Well, sounds like you need a valve adjustment. Today I'm going to walk you through one. We're going to start by removing the spark plug wires, and then we're going to take the plugs themselves out. This will make it easy to turn the motor over. While you're taking your plugs out, it's also a good time to take a good look at them and look for any problems in the combustion chamber. Or if you just want to end up replacing them, you can find that info under the hood. That will tell you which plug types you're looking for and also what your spark plug gap should be. Now that we've got the plugs removed, we're going to unbolt the two bolts that hold the valve cover on. I believe those are 10 millimeter. And just pry up the valve cover. It might stick on there, but give it a good yank and it'll pop off there. And now that we've got the valve cover off, you can see what we're going to be working with. But first, I want you to go and look at your distributor cap. There should be a mark on your distributor cap that shows you where the number one piston is. And I want you to take that mark while the cap is still on the car and essentially put that mark on the body of the distributor itself. You'll be using that as a visual reference. We need to rotate the motor, and we need to put it at top dead center for the number one piston. Now what we're going to do is, in order to rotate the motor, is we're going to take that ratchet and go up inside the driver's side wheel well. There's a hole there that will allow you to put the ratchet onto the crankshaft pulley and rotate the motor. We're going to be rotating it counterclockwise. And in order to find top dead center, one of the easiest ways is we're going to use the distributor as a reference. And you're just going to turn the motor over until the rotor shown here lines up with that marking. And then we'll know we're in the general vicinity of top dead center. For visual references, you can also look at the flywheel markings, your timing light markings, and see that's at top dead center. But in order to be 100%, you're going to need to look at the camshaft pulley. And the camshaft pulley has markings on it that will line up with the top of the head. And as we can see in the book, we are at top dead center for piston number one. So now it's time to break out the feeler gauges. To know which ones we need, once again, a look under the hood will show us what we're looking for. And I'll be using the 0.15 millimeter for my intake and auxiliary valves, and 0.279 for the exhaust valves. So to start with, we're going to be starting with the number one cylinder. As you can see here, we've got our auxiliary valve, our intake valve, and our exhaust valve. So now that we're ready to do our adjustments, we're first going to check our clearances by using the feeler gauge and running it between the bottom of the adjustment screw on the rocker arm and the top of the valve stem. There should be just a little bit of drag as you run it in between the two. If there's too much drag, then you need to loosen your adjustment screw, and if there's not any drag at all, then you may need to tighten it a little bit. In order to do this, you're going to loosen the lock nut, and then you're going to put the feeler gauge back in place, and as you're sliding it around, tighten the adjustment screw down until you feel just a tiny bit of drag, at which point stop, retighten the lock nut, and then check the clearance again. So now that we've got all the valves on our number one cylinder adjusted properly, we're going to move on. When you adjust the valves, you adjust them in the order that the engine fires. In this case, the engine firing order is 1, 3, 4, 2. So now we'll be adjusting the valves for the number 3 cylinder. We're going to be rotating the ratchet counterclockwise again at 180 degrees. This will turn the crankshaft 180 degrees, but it will turn the camshaft 90 degrees. As you can see in the manual, we're now at top dead center for piston number 3, and the valves can now be adjusted. Now that we're done with cylinder number 3, we move on to cylinder number 4, rotating the engine again and checking our manual to make sure everything's lined up properly. And finally, we'll be adjusting cylinder number 2. Yet again, rotating the camshaft 90 degrees and checking the manual for reference. And if your valve cover's gasket isn't too old, chances are you can give it a little cleanup and put it back on there. It should be good as new. Whether you're using an old gasket or a new gasket, you're still going to want to use a little bit of silicone and put a little dab of it in each spot shown here. And once you've got everything bolted back together, start your baby up, give it a good listen, and you should hear the difference right away.